Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd love to know what you think. Every comment helps me make the next story better. Subscribe to stay tuned. We were in the middle of yet another argument about her staying out late. It was 3:17 in the morning on a Thursday, and I was lying in bed waiting for the sound of the front door to open. This had become my new normal. Lying awake, listening for her keys in the lock, wondering where she'd been and who she'd been with. The bedroom door opened, and she walked in. Makeup smudged, dress wrinkled, heels dangling from her fingers. She didn't even look surprised to see me awake. Just annoyed, like I was the one doing something wrong. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Out with friends," she said, dropping her heels by the closet. "Why are you interrogating me?" I sat up in bed, checking my phone again. 3:17 a.m. "This is the sixth Thursday in 2 months," I said. And she immediately went defensive. "I'm allowed to have a life, you know. I don't need to report my every move to you." "I never said you couldn't have a life. I just think 3 in the morning is a little excessive, don't you?" That's when her eyes narrowed and her whole body language shifted. Arms crossed, jaw set, like she was preparing for battle. "You're being controlling," she said. I blinked, trying to process that. "I'm being controlling by being concerned that my wife is out until 3 a.m. on a work night." "Stop acting like you own me," she snapped. "I'm not your property. I don't need permission to live my life." The words hit me like cold water. Stop acting like I own her. I just stared at her for a long moment, feeling something fundamental shift inside me. And then, without really thinking about it, I said something that surprised even me. "You're right," I said calmly. "I don't own you. I don't even want to rent you anymore." She froze, halfway through taking off her earrings. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't answer. I just turned over in bed and closed my eyes. Or pretended to. My heart was pounding, but I kept my breathing steady. She stood there for what felt like forever, waiting for me to explain myself, to take it back, to start the fight she wanted. But I didn't. I just lay there in the dark, listening to her eventually grab her things and leave the room. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there replaying what I'd said and realizing I meant every word of it. The rent metaphor. It had just come out, but it was perfect. That's exactly what I'd been doing. Paying rent on a relationship where I was never really home, where she was never really present. I'd been covering the costs, giving my time, my energy, my peace of mind. And what was I getting in return? A wife who came home at 3 a.m. and told me I was being controlling for caring. By morning, I made a decision. I was going to start paying attention, really paying attention to how we actually functioned as a couple. Or didn't function, as the case seemed to be. She acted like nothing had happened the next morning. Got ready for work in silence, grabbed her coffee, and left without a word to me. I watched her go and felt nothing. No anger, no hurt. Just a strange, cold clarity, like I was seeing our marriage from the outside for the first time. And what I saw wasn't pretty. I started thinking about all the sacrifices I'd made for this marriage, and once I started, I couldn't stop. The list just kept growing. 5 years ago, I turned down a promotion that would have required relocating to Seattle. It was a big opportunity. More money, better title, real career advancement. But she said she couldn't leave Philadelphia. Couldn't leave her friends and family. She cried when I brought it up, said she'd feel lost in a new city. So I stayed. Took a lesser position. Told myself it was fine because we were building a life together here, in the city we both loved. I convinced myself that love meant sacrifice, that putting her needs first was what good husbands did. But now, she was never home to enjoy that life we'd supposedly stayed for. The friends she couldn't leave? She saw them 3 or 4 times a week while I sat home alone. The family gatherings she insisted we attend? I mostly went to by myself because she was always too busy. Then there were the smaller sacrifices, the ones that added up over time like grains of sand slowly burying you. I'd given up poker night with my college friends every other Tuesday. It wasn't a big thing, just a few hours with guys I'd known since freshman year. Drinking beer, talking trash, playing cards. But she said those nights made her lonely, that she wanted me home with her. I felt guilty about leaving her alone, so I stopped going. Told the guys I was too busy with work. Gradually, they stopped inviting me. I became that guy. The one everyone knows is whipped, the one who can't make his own decisions. And now she was out 3 or 4 nights a week until late, and I was home alone anyway. Watching TV by myself, feeling like an idiot for giving up the one social outlet I'd had. The irony was so thick I could taste it. The money was another thing. I'd been working extra shifts for almost 2 years to cover what she called her wellness expenses. Spa memberships at this fancy place in Rittenhouse Square. Boutique fitness classes that cost more than my gym membership. Expensive dinners out with her friends where she dropped $200 on a single meal. It added up to $800 to $1,200 a month, and I covered it without complaint. I was brown bagging turkey sandwiches for lunch, driving a 10-year-old Honda that needed new brakes, while she leased a new BMW 6 months ago. And I'd just nodded and signed the paperwork as a co-signer because I wanted her to be happy, because I thought that's what you did in a marriage. You supported your partner's happiness, even when it meant you went without. And our intimacy. God, our intimacy had completely evaporated. We used to be passionate, connected physically and emotionally. We'd talk for hours in bed, holding each other, making plans, dreaming together. Now she was always too tired or not in the mood. The last time we'd been together was 7 weeks ago. I'd been counting, not in a creepy, obsessive way, but because it felt like evidence of something dying. Like I needed proof that this wasn't just in my head. The worst part was she had plenty of energy to go dancing until 3 in the morning, to stay out late with friends, to live her life. Just not for me. Not for us. 3 months ago was my 37th birthday. She'd promised we'd go to Zahav, my favorite restaurant in the city. I'd made reservations weeks in advance, was actually looking forward to it. I even took the day off work so we could make an evening of it. Then, the day of, around 4 in the afternoon, her friend called with some emergency. And she canceled on me. Just like that. Didn't even seem conflicted about it. Said she had to go console her friend, that her friend needed her. I said we had reservations. She said we could go another time, it wasn't a big deal. I later found out through social media that the emergency was her friend wanting company for shopping at King of Prussia Mall. Not exactly a crisis. She never rescheduled my birthday dinner. Never even brought it up again, like it had just slipped her mind. I ended up eating Chinese takeout alone on the couch, scrolling through my phone, telling myself it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered a lot. The small daily dismissals were almost worse than the big ones because they happened so constantly that I'd almost stopped noticing them until I started paying attention. I'd come home from work excited about a project I'd been leading, something that actually mattered to me, and she'd wave me off mid-sentence because she was on the phone with one of her friends. I'd stand there in the kitchen holding my briefcase like an idiot while she laughed at something someone else said. I'd make her favorite pasta dish, the one with the homemade sauce that takes 2 hours, because I remembered her mentioning she'd been craving it. And she'd walk in already full because she'd grabbed dinner with coworkers. Didn't even say she'd eaten. Just, oh, I'm not hungry, thanks though. I suggested a weekend getaway to New Hope one Thursday. She loved it there, or at least she used to. We'd gone early in our relationship, walked around the galleries, stayed at this bed and breakfast. But when I brought it up, she barely looked up from her laptop. Said she was too busy, maybe another time. Another time never came. When I told her I felt like we were disconnected, like we barely saw each other anymore, she sighed like I was being dramatic. Said I was being needy, that I needed to be more independent. I asked about her day and got one-word answers. Fine. Busy. Whatever. But she could talk for hours to her friends on the phone. I could hear her through the walls, laughing, telling stories, being the animated woman I'd fallen in love with. Just never with me. I shared things about my day, and she'd scroll through Instagram while I talked. I could see her eyes on her phone, see the glow on her face, and I'd just trail off mid-sentence. Wait to see if she noticed. She usually didn't. And on the rare occasions when she looked up, she'd say, "What? Sorry, I was listening." But she wasn't, and we both knew it. I tried bringing her coffee in bed one Saturday morning. Thought maybe if I made small gestures, she'd remember we were supposed to be a team. She took the mug, said thanks, and immediately went back to her phone. I stood there for a minute, waiting for something more. A smile. A thank you that felt like she meant it. An invitation to sit down and talk. But nothing came. So I left and went for a run. Alone. Like I did everything else. There was this one night I'll never forget. It was around the time everything started shifting. I'd had a rough day at work. A project had fallen through. Something I'd been working on for months. And I came home just wanting to vent, to connect with my wife, to feel like someone cared. She was getting ready to go out, and I asked if she had a minute. She said sure, while applying mascara. So I started telling her about what happened, and I could see in the mirror's reflection that she wasn't listening at all. Her eyes were focused on her makeup, her mind already out the door with her friends. I stopped mid-sentence, just to see if she'd notice. And she didn't. She just kept getting ready. When I asked where she was going, she said, "Just out," and left 20 minutes later. I sat on the couch in the dark, wondering when exactly I'd become so invisible. I remembered when we first met, 7 years ago, at a party in Fishtown. She'd laughed at all my jokes, touched my arm while we talked. We had those late-night conversations about everything. Stayed up until dawn just talking. We took weekend trips to Cape May, couldn't keep our hands off each other. She used to call me her person, said marrying me was the easiest decision she'd ever made. Looking back now, I couldn't help but wonder when exactly that had changed. When had I stopped being her person and started being her inconvenience? One evening, about a week after the 3 a.m. argument, I stopped at the Wawa on Broad Street to grab coffee after work. It was one of those mindless stops, the kind you make without thinking, just part of your routine. But I ended up sitting in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, maybe longer, just staring at the steering wheel, the coffee getting cold in my hand. I wasn't even really thinking about anything specific, just feeling this weight, this heaviness that had settled in my chest and wouldn't leave. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror, and I didn't recognize the man looking back at me. I actually did a double take, like, who is that? The face was mine, obviously, but the expression, the eyes, the set of the mouth, it was all wrong. This wasn't the guy who'd been confident and happy 7 years ago. The guy who'd been excited about getting married, about building a life with someone. This was someone tired, worn down, like he'd been carrying something too heavy for too long, and his body was starting to give out. I looked older than 37. Looked like someone who'd forgotten how to smile genuinely. I sat there adjusting the mirror, looking at myself from different angles, like maybe I'd see something different. But I didn't. I just kept seeing this stranger, this shell of who I used to be. And I started thinking about when exactly the change had happened. Was it gradual, over years? Or was there a specific moment when I stopped being me and became this version of myself? The guy who accepted scraps and called it a meal. The guy who paid and paid and paid and never asked what he was getting in return. And that's when the rental metaphor really took root in my brain. I'd been treating my marriage like a rental agreement, where I was the tenant making payments in the form of sacrifices and compromises, thinking that if I just paid enough, kept up with the costs, stayed current on what I owed, that I'd earn my place in her life, that I'd secure my spot, that she'd finally see how much I cared. But she'd been an absentee landlord, collecting rent, but never maintaining the property, never investing back, never fixing what was broken, never even showing up to check if things were falling apart. And the worst part, the part that really got me sitting there in that Wawa parking lot, was that I'd signed up for this. I'd agreed to these terms. I'd kept making payments even when the roof was leaking and the heat wasn't working and the whole structure was falling down around me. I just kept writing checks, kept making sacrifices, kept telling myself it would get better if I just tried harder, if I just gave more. But she was right that night. She didn't owe me anything. We weren't bound by some cosmic contract that required her to care about my feelings or my needs or my existence. And if she didn't owe me anything, then I didn't owe her anything either. I didn't owe her my peace of mind. I didn't owe her my self-respect. I didn't owe her another year, or another month, or another day of feeling like I was invisible in my own marriage. I drove home that night with something I hadn't felt in years. A sense of purpose. Not angry purpose, not vindictive purpose. Just clear purpose. I knew what I had to do. I had to stop. I had to stop trying so hard, stop covering the costs, stop being the only one invested in keeping this marriage alive. And I had to see what happened when I did. When I stopped propping up something that couldn't stand on its own. The changes started small and deliberate. I stopped asking her how her day was. Not out of spite or revenge, but because I realized I didn't actually want to hear the same rehearsed complaints about coworkers or the same stories about her friend's drama. I'd heard variations of these stories 100 times, and I'd nodded along, pretended to care. But I was done pretending. I wanted to see what would happen if I let the conversation die, instead of always being the one to resuscitate it. At first, she didn't even notice. We were so far gone that my withdrawal just blended into the background noise of our dying marriage. We'd sit in the living room, me reading a book or scrolling through my phone, her doing the same, and the silence would just stretch out like taffy, getting thinner and thinner until it was almost invisible. Eventually, she'd throw out some comment about her day, some observation about a coworker or a friend, and I'd make a noncommittal sound. Hum, or oh, or sometimes just a grunt. She'd glance over at me, waiting for the follow-up questions she was used to, waiting for me to engage, to ask for details, to keep the conversation going. But I didn't. I just went back to whatever I was doing. And after a few seconds of awkward silence, she'd go back to her phone, looking slightly confused but not concerned. Not yet. By the third day, she noticed. "You've been quiet lately," she said one evening while we were eating dinner in silence. Well, not eating together. I was eating. She was picking at her food, scrolling through Instagram. "Just tired," I replied with a shrug, not looking up. "Everything okay?" "Fine," I said. And that was it. I didn't elaborate, didn't give her the opening she was looking for, didn't make it easy. I saw confusion flicker across her face when I finally did look up. She wasn't used to this. Wasn't used to me being the one who was distant and unavailable. That was supposed to be her role. I was supposed to be the one chasing, trying to connect, trying to make things work. And here I was, completely detached. And I could see it was starting to unsettle her. Good. I also stopped covering her credit card bills. It was something I'd been doing quietly for so long I think she'd forgotten it was even happening. We had joint accounts for household expenses and separate accounts for personal spending. And every month, like clockwork, her personal account would overdraft or her credit card would be maxed, and I'd quietly transfer money to cover it. $800 here, $1,200 there, sometimes more. I never said anything, never made her feel bad about it. Just handled it, like it was my job. This month, I didn't transfer the money. Just let it sit. Watched the overdraft notices come through to our joint email account, and said nothing. The first few days, she didn't notice. But by day 5, I got a text from her while I was at work. "Did you forget to transfer money to my account?" I typed back, "No," and left it at that. 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean I didn't forget. I just didn't do it." "Why not?" "Because it's your account. Your expenses. You should cover them." The dots appeared and disappeared several times, but no response came. I put my phone away and got back to work, feeling lighter than I had in months. That evening, she tried to bring it up, but I shut it down. "You make your own money," I said. "You can pay your own bills." She wanted to argue. I could see it. But she couldn't quite figure out how to without admitting she'd been relying on me to bankroll her lifestyle all this time. Then I did something I hadn't done in over a year. Something that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I texted my old poker night friends. The group chat had been silent for months. The last few messages from me had gone unanswered, and I'd taken the hint. But I tried anyway. "Hey guys, know it's been a while. Any chance I could join next Tuesday?" I hit send and waited. Didn't expect anything, really. Figured they'd probably found someone else to fill my spot. Or maybe they'd just stopped meeting altogether. But within an hour, responses started coming through. "Dude, yes. Absolutely. About damn time. We've missed you, man. Thought you'd forgotten about us." I felt something in my chest loosen, something I hadn't even realized was tight. We made plans for Tuesday night, and I didn't tell her. Didn't mention it, didn't ask if it was okay. Just decided I was going. When Tuesday came, I got home from work at 5:30, changed out of my work clothes, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and headed out at 8:30. My phone buzzed as I was getting in the car. "Where are you?" "Out with friends," I typed back. The response came immediately. "What friends?" "Poker night." There was a long pause, then just, "Oh." Nothing else. "No, what time will you be home?" "No, why didn't you tell me?" Just, "Oh." Like she was processing the fact that I'd done something without her knowledge or permission. I stayed out until almost midnight. Came home to find her still awake on the couch, pretending to watch some reality show. But I could tell she'd been waiting up. The TV was just background noise. "You could have told me you were going out," she said, trying to sound casual, but I heard the edge in her voice. "You don't tell me when you're going out," I replied, keeping my tone even. "Just figured I'd extend the same courtesy." "That's different," she said. "How?" "It just is." She couldn't explain it. Couldn't articulate why her nights out were freedom and independence, but mine were betrayals. The next morning, she brought me coffee in bed. Something she hadn't done in months, maybe longer. I thanked her, took a sip, but didn't make it into the conversation she was clearly hoping for. She lingered in the doorway, waiting. expecting me to say something more, to acknowledge the gesture, to take it as an olive branch. But I just picked up my phone and started scrolling through the news. Eventually, she left, and I heard her getting ready for work in the bathroom. The slam of the cabinet door a little harder than necessary. A few days later, she suggested we watch a movie together on Saturday night. I told her I had plans. What plans? She asked, eyes narrowing. Just plans, I said with a shrug. Her jaw tightened. What kind of plans? Does it matter? I asked. She didn't have an answer for that. The plans were actually nothing special. I just went to a bookstore, browsed for a couple hours, got dinner alone at my favorite pizza place on Passaic Avenue. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed just doing things for myself without having to coordinate or compromise or explain. That night, when I got home around 10, she was waiting up again. This is getting ridiculous, she said. What is this? She gestured vaguely at me. You being all mysterious and distant. It's passive-aggressive. I'm not being passive-aggressive, I said. I'm just living my life. Same as you. It's not the same, and you know it. I don't know that, actually, I replied. You go out whenever you want. Don't tell me where you're going. Come home late. Do your own thing. I'm just following your example. That seemed to stump her. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're punishing me. No, I said, and I meant it. I'm not punishing you. I'm just done trying to hold this marriage together by myself. We're married, she said, like that explained everything. Like the word itself was supposed to be enough. Yeah, I said. We are. But lately, it feels more like we're roommates who occasionally see each other in passing. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked about my life and actually listened? When's the last time you chose to spend time with me instead of going out with your friends? I have a right to have friends. I never said you didn't. But I also have a right to not be the only one investing in this relationship. I invest plenty, she said defensively. Do you? I asked genuinely. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I'm the one making all the sacrifices and you're the one making all the withdrawals. That's ridiculous. You're being dramatic. Am I? I stood up, started counting on my fingers. I turned down a job in Seattle for you. Gave up poker night with my friends so you wouldn't be lonely. Work extra hours to pay for your expenses. Canceled my own plans over and over to accommodate yours. And what have you sacrificed? What have you given up for us? She just stared at me. I never asked you to do any of that. You're right, I said. You never asked. You just took. And I gave. And I kept giving because I thought that's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. But you know what I'm realizing? I'm realizing that partnership goes both ways. And this hasn't been a partnership in a long time. I could see her getting angry now, her face flushing. So what? You're keeping score now. This is a marriage, not a transaction. I almost laughed. It's funny you say that. Because for the last 2 years, this has felt exactly like a transaction. And I've been on the losing end of it. She stood up too. Now we were both standing in the living room, facing each other, and I could feel years of resentment bubbling up in my chest. I can't believe you're being like this, she said. I'm not some object you can own. And there it was. The same line from that night. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I already told you. I said, my voice calm but firm. I don't want to own you. I don't even want to rent you anymore. What does that even mean? She demanded. It means I'm done paying the cost of being in a relationship where I'm not a priority. If you want your freedom so badly, you can have it. But you don't get to have freedom and my support and my money and my time and my patience. Those were part of the rental agreement. And I'm terminating the lease. You're saying you want a divorce? Her voice cracked. I'm saying I want off this treadmill. Whether that's divorce or you actually showing up to this marriage, that's up to you. She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I don't know how we got here, she whispered. Honestly, I said, neither do I. All I know is you stopped being my partner and I stopped mattering to you. And I'm not going to beg anymore. I turned and walked to the guest room, closed the door behind me, and stood there for a moment, listening to her crying in the living room. A year ago, even a month ago, I would have gone back out there, wrapped my arms around her, told her we'd figure it out. But I didn't, because I'd already been doing that for too long, and it hadn't changed anything. I slept in the guest room that night and the 2 nights after. We moved through the house like strangers, avoiding eye contact, speaking only when necessary. She tried twice to start a conversation about us, but I shut it down both times. I'm not ready to talk, I told her. When will you be ready? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. On Saturday morning, I started packing a bag. She walked into the guest room, saw me folding clothes into a duffel, and her face went pale. Where are you going? Staying with a friend for a while. You're leaving? I'm giving us space. How is this going to help? It's going to help me figure out if I can keep doing this. And it's going to help you figure out if you even want me to. I don't want you to go, she said, her voice desperate. We can work on this. Can we? I asked. Because 2 weeks ago, you were coming home at 3 a.m., telling me I don't own you. Now that I'm actually leaving, suddenly you want to work on it? I didn't think you'd actually leave. And that's the problem, I said, zipping the bag. I didn't think I'd leave. You didn't think I'd leave. You thought I'd just keep taking it. But I'm not that guy anymore. She grabbed my arm. Please, don't do this. I'll change. I'll stay home more. I gently removed her hand. I don't want you to stay home because I'm threatening to leave. I wanted you to stay home because you wanted to be with me. There's a difference. I picked up the bag, walked toward the door. She stood in the guest room doorway, crying, but she didn't follow me. I paused at the front door, looked back at her standing there, tears streaming down her face, and I felt something. But it wasn't guilt. And it wasn't love. It was just finality. I closed the door quietly behind me, got in my Honda, and sat there for a moment, waiting for the regret to hit. But it didn't come. Instead, my chest felt lighter, like I could breathe deeper than I had in months. I turned the key and drove toward my friend's place in Manayunk. Didn't look back at the house. My buddy from college had gotten divorced 2 years ago, so he understood when I showed up with a duffel bag. He just pointed to the couch, told me to stay as long as I needed, and didn't ask questions. I appreciated that. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. I just needed space. That first night, I lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling. My phone kept buzzing with texts from her, but I didn't read them. Just let them pile up. Eventually, I fell asleep, and I slept better than I had in months. The first few days felt strange. I'd wake up without that knot in my stomach, that dread of facing another day of being invisible. I ate what I wanted, watched what I wanted, made plans without checking in. It felt wrong at first, like I was forgetting something important. But gradually, it started feeling like freedom. But then, around day 4, the loneliness crept in. I was eating pizza from my favorite place on Passink, sitting alone at my friend's kitchen table, and it hit me. I'd been alone for years. This was just the first time I was honest about it. The apartment was quiet, but our house had been quiet too. Just a different kind of quiet. This was peaceful. That had been suffocating. I missed her, but not the her that existed now. I missed the woman from 7 years ago. The one who laughed at my jokes and stayed up talking until dawn. That person didn't exist anymore. And mourning her felt like mourning a ghost. On day 7, my phone rang late in the evening. It was her. I stared at the screen for a long time, almost let it go to voicemail. But finally, I answered. Hey, she said, her voice small. Hey. There was a long silence, just breathing on both ends of the line. I don't know what to do, she finally said. Neither do I. More silence. I miss you, she said. Do you? I asked. Or do you miss having me there? That's not fair. It's a real question. There was a pause. I don't know, she said quietly. Maybe both? At least you're honest. Can we try counseling? Please? I don't know if counseling can fix this. But we haven't tried it. We haven't tried a lot of things, I said. Like you being present. Like you prioritizing us. Like you acting like my feelings mattered. I know, her voice broke. I know I messed up. I took you for granted. Yeah, I said. You did. So that's it, she asked, crying now. You're just done? Years of marriage, and you're just walking away? I'm not the one who walked away, I said. I was always here. You're the one who left. You just kept coming back to sleep in the same house. That's not. I never meant. I know you didn't mean to. That's almost worse. We sat in silence, listening to each other breathe. I need more time, I finally said. How much time? I don't know. Will you come home? Not yet. Maybe not at all. I don't know. I can't just wait forever. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to actually think about whether you want this marriage. Because I've been thinking about it for months, and I'm still not sure. I do want it. I want us. Then show me. Not by texting me 20 times a day. Not by promising you'll change. Show me by actually changing. Go to counseling alone. Figure out why you needed to be gone all the time. Figure out why I wasn't enough. It wasn't that you weren't enough. Then what was it? Silence. I don't know, she whispered. Then that's what you need to figure out, I said. The call ended quietly. No, I love you. No promises. Just two people who didn't know how to fix what was broken. Over the next few weeks, she tried. She really did. She started going to therapy, sent me screenshots of her appointments, sent long texts about what she was learning, said she was realizing she'd been using nights out to avoid intimacy, that she'd been scared of being vulnerable. She asked me to come to a couples counseling session. I agreed to one session. We met at a therapist's office in Center City on a Wednesday evening, sat on opposite ends of a couch while a woman with kind eyes asked us questions. What brought you in today? She talked about me leaving, about her mistakes, about wanting to fix things. I talked about feeling invisible for years, about sacrificing everything while getting nothing back, about being tired of begging for scraps of attention. The therapist looked at both of us. What do you both want from this marriage? I want him to come home, she said immediately. I want to feel like I matter, I said. The therapist nodded. Are those things compatible? We both sat there in silence. Neither of us had an answer. After the session, we walked to the parking garage together. It was awkward and sad. The kind of sad that settles in your bones. Will you come home now? She asked. I need more time. She was frustrated. I could see it, but she didn't push. Over the next few weeks, we kept trying. Or she kept trying, anyway. More therapy sessions. More texts. More promises of change. And I could see she meant it. I could see she was actually working on herself. But something had shifted in me. Something I couldn't shift back. I didn't trust her anymore. Didn't trust us. And maybe that wasn't entirely her fault. Maybe it was just what happens when you ignore someone long enough. The cuts heal, but the scars remain. And too many scars mean the tissue doesn't work the same way anymore. 2 months after I left, we met at a coffee shop in Old City on a Saturday morning. She looked tired but hopeful. I felt numb. I don't think I can come back, I said. Her face crumbled. Why? I'm trying. I'm doing everything. I know you are. And I see it. But it doesn't change how I feel. How do you feel? Tired. Done. Like we've grown too far apart to ever find our way back. So you're giving up? I'm accepting reality. This isn't working. It hasn't worked for a long time. Because I went out too late? Because I didn't appreciate you enough? I can fix that. It's not about fixing anymore, I said. It's about, we're not the same people who got married. And I don't think we like who we became together. I still love you, she said. Maybe. But love isn't enough when there's no respect, no partnership, no foundation. So that's it. Her voice turned angry. You're just going to leave? I already left, I said. I left weeks ago. This is just making it official. She cried. I didn't reach for her. I'm filing for separation. You can contest it if you want. But I'm done. I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe it took me this long. I stood up, left money for both our coffees, and walked away. I heard her crying behind me, but I kept walking. A week later, I moved into my own apartment. A small one-bedroom in a quiet building. My things looked sparse in the space, but it felt like mine. I got the separation papers from her lawyer. Didn't open them right away. Just set them on the counter and looked around my new place. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt clear. They say marriage is about compromise, about give and take. But nobody tells you what to do when you're the only one giving. Nobody tells you when it's okay to stop trying. Nobody tells you that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something you've invested years in. She said I didn't own her. She was right. But I also don't owe her any more of myself than she was willing to give back. I don't know if leaving was the right choice. Maybe in a year, I'll regret it. Maybe I'll wonder if we could have made it work. But right now, all I know is this. I'd rather be alone and at peace than married and invisible. I don't own her. I don't even want to rent space in a relationship where I'm always the one paying and she's never home. Maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe that makes me a quitter. Or maybe it just makes me someone who finally learned his worth. I guess only time will tell. But for now, I'm okay with not knowing. For now, I'm okay with just being. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.